All right, here we go. Episode 2 of the Dirt Beers podcast. This week we have a guest. First-time guest on the podcast, the first ever guest on the podcast. We have Clinton Boyles. We appreciate him coming out. Also with me, Jonathan, same as last week, co-host. So, yeah, Clinton, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Honored to be your first guest. Hopefully it's a lot of fun here.
I think it's a lot of fun on Dirt Beers. I mean, we kind of have a new tradition that's already started where we got to crack a beer on the mic here to kind of set the tone. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for myself. Everybody, more than welcome to join me. I like it.
I got the skinny beer.
Full participation. Hey, they don't ask how much, they just ask how many, right?
Exactly.
Yep. I'll never turn down a Busch Light.
Hey, this is kind of fun for both of us because we kind of come at it from both of your angles to kind of what you do these days, Clinton, with Beef being a guy who works in the pits and works on sprint cars, and me being an announcer. It's kind of like both of your paths these days in terms of what you do in the world of racing, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spend 95% of my year working on the Vermeer 55. This year we were with High Limit full time, so really busy, a lot of fun. You're just trying to manage all that, and then we're almost to the time of the year where I get behind the announcer's mic and get to sit in down in Tulsa and do some color commentating, which I definitely enjoy, probably more than anyone realizes, getting to go down there and do that and just be a part of the flow broadcast down there. So I'm definitely always excited to have that. The emails have started coming in, trying to prepare, study, and things like that. So I guess I get to do a little bit of both of what you guys, and just fortunate to be able to do both sides of it.
Nice, yeah. I mean, it's always fun watching on the flow broadcast for the Chili Bowl. I think it's great, having your perspective as a guy that works on race cars, and then getting to put that feedback in when you're watching the races. But let's start out with how you got into racing. What's your background in racing before today? Like, take us back years, how many years when you started, what got you into it, and just what your racing career has been.
Yeah, so it feels like it's been a long career, but it started before I was born. I'm a third or fourth generation racer. My dad raced. He met my mom racing against her dad, so it would be my grandpa. That's how my parents met. So at the racetrack, whatever. And when I was younger, kind of up until I was like 12 or 13-ish, I was a big sports guy. I have an older sister, and her and my dad were big into racing. My dad raced a lot. He wasn't a full-time racer, but he raced every weekend, basically. And so she would travel with him, go racing. I kind of stayed home with my mom and did sports. And so definitely until I was like 12 or 13, I was definitely into sports more than racing. And then I would say when I got to like 15 or 16, my sister married Hunter Schoenberg. They obviously met at the racetrack. So when Hunter, came around, he was racing, the opportunity to hang out with him more. That's probably when I really got into racing, kind of the way I am now. I guess, I did race a go-kart when I was like 7 or 8, I think. Just a flat track go-kart a couple times. And then right at that 12, 13 age, I got ran a micro sprint, Sweet Springs, Missouri. So that was super, kind of part-time doing that. And then as I got like my senior year of high school, you kind of start thinking on in the future, what do you want to do? And my mom, of course, had played soccer my whole career, I guess, like educational career. And so my mom's like, you need to keep playing soccer, go to college, you have scholarship offers. Why don't you do that? And I just wanted to go race. So come that time, my mom made me promise to do 2 years of college. So I called up the local community college in town and said, hey, would you have a spot for me on your team? And, luckily enough, they're like, absolutely, yeah. So I got a scholarship to do that, as well as an academic scholarship, and went and played soccer for 2 years. And the kind of latter half of that second year, I guess, it would have to be 2016. So it'd be like the end of my college there. Jack Hockett called me, and it really went from before that with Kathy Hockett. It would be Jack's sister, or Jesse Hockett's niece, if people know who Jesse Hockett is. Or not niece, aunt, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
And they were just family friends of ours from the same region. And Jack had seen me run a midget a few times. I'd only run Chili Bowl a couple times and 1 or 2 outdoor shows. And I had won a midget race by then. But just called me up and said, hey, I'm kind of getting away from what I got going on. I can't fund this race car anymore. I still would love to see the 77 out there. Would you and your dad want to take over what I have and, go racing with it? So we worked out a deal, and Jack gave us the race car, race-ready race car basically, and a trailer, and that was about it. And it was right at the same time that Jack's niece, Brooke Schumann, her and Casey started up the War Series around Missouri.
Okay,
Traveled a little bit out of state, but kind of Missouri series. So the idea worked out that I kind of take over the 77. My dad and I'm going to go race it. We'll race it with their series, right? Keep it within their family. Kind of see how it went. There was zero expectation. Like I said, I maybe ran a midget 4 or 5 times. Never really raced any big cars. Never sat in a sprint car or anything like that. So didn't really know what to expect.
What was the feeling like getting into a big car like that? Just from...
It was nerve-wracking. I don't know why. I guess I just had a bit of confidence about me.
It's always good.
The micro stuff had gone well. I'd ran, my family's micro stuff and won some races. I'd ran for a Ramey family, Chris Ramey and Gunnar Ramey.
Okay, yeah.
They had a car that I ran a handful of times. Tyler Ramey was a part of that too. And so, I actually never won in their car, but I ran second like 13 times that season that I ran it. A guy named Quentin Benson won it, which if you watch the shootout, you know who Quentin Benson is in the non-wing class. He's very, very talented. He kicked my ass every freaking weekend. We'd have start at the tail because of the points system they had there. And we'd race our way to the front. Usually I'd get to the front first and then just couldn't hang on, So I guess I just had a little bit of confidence, but I was still nervous. You're taking over the Hockett ride, the name, the 77. The whole family's there, right? Because they're there to support Brooke and Casey with the series. They're there to see how I do in the race car. I think I was just lucky to have my dad there. Every step of the way, kind of in that early stage, to just keep me calm. Say, hey, just go make all the laps. No expectations. We'll roll it in the trailer. We'll go try again next week. Whatever whatever happens, happens. And so my first ever race was at Grain Valley, Missouri, which, if anyone knows what Grain Valley, Missouri is, I freaking love the racetrack. But a lot of people would say the facility is just not the nicest. I mean, a lot of people have raced there. I don't want to call it a dump, but it's just kind of a dump,
It's just got patina. It's got patina,
Yeah. It's got a lot of character for sure.
Yeah.
But the racetrack is awesome. It's like a little bigger than a quarter mile, high banked up at the top of the track, got like a 12-inch man-made curb up there with no walls. So you just go absolutely bash it.
That's nice.
So that's where we went in the heat race. I don't remember where I started, but I know it started off terrible. I dropped right to the back and then somehow drove my way back up to like second in the heat race, I think. And then, kind of started, I think I started 8th or 9th in the feature and got the lead with like 2 to go, and a yellow came out. And had to give it back and ran second. But that was kind of the start of it, and just from there, I don't know, like I said, that confidence built a little bit. I had, between my dad and Jack Hockett and my mom, just a bunch of people supporting me, giving me help along the way. Hunter for sure calling in and saying, here's some setup tips that he was running USAC at the time, so just bounced ideas back and forth, and that was kind of the real start to my racing career. I never really ran a full season until then. So, fast forward through that, I win the championship that year with War. That was a 360 car, and I actually went out to Indiana a couple times and had a couple top 10s in Indiana with that 360, and at the end of that year, it was, kind of game time decision of, what do I do? Do I stay and try to run that series again? Do I take off and go do something else? And at that time, my parents had bought our own sprint car with a 410 in it. So I kind of had options of what I could do. And how I ended up deciding was like, I guess it was end of March probably. I had a decent chili bowl, and JJ Yaley called me. And he goes, man, I'm just going to explain it to you like this. If you run the War Series again and you don't win the championship for whatever reason, it's a disappointment to everybody, and everyone looks like you failed. In their eyes, you failed. If you go to Indiana and you can get in 20, 30 races out there and put together a couple runs, it's a huge success. You can jumpstart your career. So honestly, that's why I did that. I think how that phone call even got set up was somebody that's pretty popular, Rockwell Security. Jeff Taylor is the guy's name. He sponsors Logan CV a lot. He's been around. So he was a sponsor of my dad, sponsored me. Jeff's a great guy. And so he kind of hooked that phone call up for me and kind of got that push to go to Indiana. And so I think middle April in 2017, I packed up my bags and moved in with my sister and Hunter out in Indiana, and that's how I basically got to where I'm at now. Continued on racing. In 2018, I drove for Paul Hazen, won the Gas City Championship, won like 6 races that year, and then kind of built from there. And I think to transition to the crew chief stuff was in 2020, I guess COVID year. I ran midgets full time as well as non-wing sprint cars, and that came to an end. I got let go at the end of that season, which is a whole nother story in itself. And Hunter was looking for kind of a crew guy more than anything, not even a crew chief, and we always bounce ideas back and forth. And so he's like, hey, why don't you just come work for me the second half of the season in 2021, and we'll just see how it goes. And it went really well. So did that season with him. 2022 decided to make me the crew chief, and away we went. And just been I guess we're 3 years into this now. It's been a fun 3 years. A lot of shit's happened in those 3 years, or even before that, to get me to where I'm at. But without just giving my entire life story, that's kind of a quick just on where I got to now, or how I got here.
So when you reflect on kind of like that post-COVID time where you're making that transition to being a crew chief, what was kind of the biggest challenge that you felt? Was it, letting go of the desire to drive or that will to race, or was it more so now you're sitting there working on the car every single night, thinking about setups, thinking about all these things that maybe when you were a driver you didn't put as much focus into because you were focused on your racecraft?
Yeah, man, that's actually a really good question. I would think probably the biggest thing for me was just the adjustment of like the routine at the racetrack, right? Like now all of a sudden my thought process isn't, okay, let's, talk over our base setup, go get my helmet ready, things like that. It was, now I have to make sure nothing's going to fall off this race car, right? And just, get everything exactly where it needs to be so that Hunter can go have the most success he can. And when it's for your family, like Hunter is with me, there's probably some added pressure that I was putting on myself, and just some nervousness about, kind of all that. And so, I think that's probably the biggest thing is just, at the racetrack, mentally going through a checklist of like, what do I need to do, today at the racetrack, and just being nervous about not giving Hunter the best car, or, not being prepared for whatever. So in a way that was maybe a bad thing, because at the racetrack, my mind wasn't as calm and just, kind of loose flowing as it could be to make some setup calls. But at the shop, it probably had me be more prepared because I was scared to not be where we needed to be when we got to the racetrack. So a bit of a double-edged sword there, but that was definitely the biggest change, and I think, it's probably noticeable more to myself than anybody, but I guess it was last year when we split ways with Hunter and Buddy Kofoid came to the car, and then Kerry Madsen. I kind of got that, like, not the fuck it attitude in a sense, but more like, I'm not going to be afraid to make these changes, and if the car is terrible, then I'm not worried about Buddy losing money or Kerry losing money, because they're not family to me, they're not racing to put money on the table for my nephew Whelan or whoever. So I wasn't afraid to make some of those changes and just learn and grow a bit more as a crew chief, which I think has been very good for me. It definitely sucks how all that played out for me to get to where I'm at as far as like that knowledge goes. But I definitely think in that last year and a half now that I've grown so much as a crew chief because of, me not being afraid to take those chances.
Yeah. So that was going to be one of my questions. Like, when you pull the rig into whatever racetrack you're going to, what does your night look like when that door drops and the car gets unloaded? Like, you got to be going through so many different things. Like, is your first thing to go look at the track and see what the conditions are like? Or is it doing some other stuff in the trailer, talking with Chris maybe about what setup you guys think you're going to start with for hot laps and then for time trials? Just run us through a night kind of what your duties are and what decisions you have to make.
Yeah, I mean, more times than not, I drive the rig to the track. So when we get there, I kind of get the car out, get the mule out, whatever, and then I like to just kind of walk off and decompress a little bit just from driving, because it can be stressful driving that semi up and down the road, you know.
I
So,
bet.
you know, go look at the track, just kind of be by myself, be some quiet for a little bit. And even if I'm not just like 100% sitting there studying the racetrack, it's just nice to kind of be away for a little bit. And then Chris usually shows up a little bit later on. And when I get back to, you know, kind of the car or whatever, I can have a talk with Chris, you know, this track's maybe a little bit like another one we've been to. Here's kind of what I'm thinking for baseline. You know, maybe these are some changes that I'm going to make from our last race to this one to try to, you know, make you feel better and go from there. Then, you know, I really don't do a whole lot other than block the race car. My car chief, Carson, he is phenomenal. And so he's going to roll it out. He nut and bolts everything. I don't have to worry one bit. So I can just step in, block the race car, you know, measure a few things along the way, and then fuel settings for the engine. That's kind of my thing. So get a reading of the air, and then, you know, adjust my fuel settings from there, and we should be ready to go. Probably the biggest struggle, I guess, in that time frame is just like gear, which now we've been to so many racetracks, we have a pretty solid idea every time we unload of what gear we need to throw in. But anytime you go somewhere new, that's the big thing, is every freaking crew chief's walking through the pit area saying, what gear are you on? You know, what gear are you going to run tonight?
Just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so nothing too stressful. I do always pill draw for our team, so that's another stressful part of the night. A lot of times this year, for whatever reason, I felt like we were either number 1 or we were number 75, and just could never find just a nice 25 in there, you know. So
no.
How do the high limit do it? Do they do it electronically through the computer, or are you actually pulling chips?
Yep, there's balls in like a spinner.
I
watched a Powerball, maybe. They got like a thing that spins the balls. And so a guy named Anthony Carini works for High Limit. He does it. He's always out there joking with you, you know, whatever, about
busting
how
your
night
balls.
went before. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's a good time.
That's good.
Have you developed any like superstitions around that, in terms of, is there any like thing you've done through the year where you're noticing, okay, I get a better draw when I do this, so I have to walk up with my left foot forward, or is there any kind of superstitions that you've developed either pulling the pills or just for race nights overall?
No, not really. It does seem, though, like I'll walk up, and if Anthony has 5 names that have drawn 31 through 60 or whatever, you know, everyone's kind of in that era. For whatever reason, it does seem like it trends in that same direction. Or you know, if the first guy was 60 and they've been getting less, like, this seems like a good time to draw. So there has been a couple times I've like walked away if numbers, you know, are all really high or whatever, and came back in like 5 minutes and tried again. If anything, that's it. I'm not a big superstitious guy. My grandpa was. On my dad's side, there was, you know, no peanuts in the pit area, no fried chicken on race day, no green, things like that, a whole list of deals. And I never bought into that, right? Like, Steve Kinzer had green race cars, so did Donnie Schatz. I don't know. Freaking, it's fried chicken. What the heck's that going to do? I never had to worry about peanuts because I'm allergic to them. So that one was never a big deal for me. But yeah, not very superstitious on my end.
We only got 2 in our trailer, and it's no $50 bills in anybody's pockets, and we have to have an open bag of barbecue Fritos in the trailer.
Huh, okay. I've heard the $50 bill one. That one's pretty common, too.
Yeah, the barbecue Fritos one's a little left field, but that's my driver's thing, so...
Is that like the little twist, the little honey barbecue twist ones?
Yeah.
Man, those will get me through any late night drive. A bag of those will keep me going for another hour easily. Those are my favorite,
That was actually one of my questions. Like, when you're driving across the country and you're stopping at these truck stops, what's your favorite snack to grab, and what's your favorite drink to grab when you're rolling through a truck stop?
Yeah, man, the snack wise, like if the restaurant's not open at the Pilot or Love's or whatever, it's definitely the honey barbecue twist and the Chex Mix party blend or bold or whatever it is.
Okay.
Those 2 things keep me going for quite a while. I don't really do like candy or anything like that. Like sweets don't really do it for me. And then honestly, I got to where I was just drinking water. We have a little refrigerator in our semi truck, so just a cold water or whatever works. I love a Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dews are like a fountain Mountain Dew, not a bottle.
Fountain anything is the best. It's way better than a bottle on anything.
Yeah. So no, but honestly, like for the majority of this year, was just a bottle of water, something cold. So yeah, I'm pretty good. I can drive all night long, no problem. Like from whatever time we leave till 6, 7 in the morning, as soon as that sun starts to come up. But once the sun comes up, I'm done. I'm cashed out after that. And same like daytime driving. Like 3, 4 in the afternoon, if you're 2 o'clock, if you're driving to the track, I want to be asleep so bad. I just struggle when the sun's up. But sundown, I'll rip all night long, no problem.
Nice.
What was the longest drive that you've had to do in maybe like one concession?
We left Skagit, Washington this year and drove straight through to Indianapolis.
Oh my God.
It's like 34 hours, something like that.
That's
I think
wild.
is what it ended up being.
That's wild.
And we drove and we had stopped for fuel, and that was it, which was only one time until we got to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it was actually the same night as the High Banks Nationals there, their big 250,000 to win race. So we stopped in Sioux Falls at a car wash that was right off the highway, and we washed, and there happened to be some other teams there washing. So that was like the first time we really got to get out of the truck for more than 5 minutes and washed, and then got back in the truck. That was at like 11:30 at night after we drove for 24 hours, and then drove another 12 hours on into Indianapolis and got there at like noon, 1 o'clock that next day.
That's wild.
So, yeah, and then we had to get in the truck, not the following day, like that earned us a 1-day break, but the day after that we had to drive to Pennsylvania to race at Port Royal. So
yeah,
that was pretty tough. But
Jesus,
yeah, that was a long one. I drove out of that, if it was like 36 hours, I probably drove, I don't know, 28 of them. So that was a lot of driving.
I was gonna say, is everybody like? Well, I was gonna ask a question too. When you go about hiring a crew guy, what are you looking for? Like, are you looking for obviously their experience in racing and if they've been on a team before, stuff like that? But are you looking for like, do they have their CDL? Do they have certain licenses or things that would benefit the team?
Yeah, CDL is a big one now for us. We used to not have a semi, so it wasn't, didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
This season we got a semi truck and the full, featherlight trailer, all that. So I actually don't even have my CDL. I have my permit.
Okay.
Our tire guy this year, Wyatt, he had his CDL. So as long as he was in the truck, I was still okay to drive.
Good.
We probably broke a little bit along the way, but we don't need to worry about that. So
yeah, ain't gonna hurt nobody.
Hiring someone with a CDL is important for us, so we can have 2 truck drivers. Then like race car experience isn't that big a deal. I feel like anyone that's wanting to be in the racing industry or like wants to want to work on race cars, I guess, like you can teach them what you need to teach them, especially if they just want to be a tire guy. After about 3 days, I should be able to teach you anything you need to know about tires, and it's pretty repetitive after that. The car chief is a little bit different. That's just that takes a year or two to kind of get in the groove of things and just some building trust, things like that. But I mean the racing experience seems like not that big a deal, but for me, looking to hire someone, or if you're a younger kid, I think getting that CDL makes you so much more valuable to a team. Even if you don't drive that often, at least you just have yours so people can use your hours or whatever it may be. But that's a big way to get your name at the top of the list of getting hired.
And through the week, what does your role look like in season? Like, what are you guys doing between races when you do have that downtime and you do have a couple days to spend at the shop and really, I guess, reset and get ready for the next batch of the schedule? What does a crew chief's role in the shop look like when you're a full-time sprint car operation?
Yeah, for me, it's just, kind of it's assisting on wash day, whatever I may need. Like I wash the race car. So if we get back on a Sunday, Monday's wash day, I like to be able to have a little time out of the shop. So Monday we'll just only wash. We'll get there in the morning and wash until everything's clean and done to the fullest, and then I'll send the guys home, say, okay, go enjoy the rest of your evening, your night, go spend it with your family, whatever. We'll show up on Tuesday and work. And so Tuesday, you kind of I'm letting the car chief manage the bars, things like that. And while he's doing that, I'm probably off at FKND getting my shocks dynoed. If we tore anything up, I'm getting those parts picked up from Bernie at Indy Race Parts and building whatever we may need, just kind of rounding up stuff that we need. And then come the end of the day, those guys are basically done with everything they need to do, so I can run valves on the engine and pull engine maintenance, kind of do all that. And then come into Tuesday, we're basically done. So I like to tell the guys, take Wednesday off. If we're in a good spot, we don't, nothing major happened. Take Wednesday off, go hang out, go golf, do whatever you want to do. That way you can show up Thursday and Friday where you're like eager to go again. You know, you don't get some of that burnout because we don't get weekends, you know. We don't have weekends off. So if I can find a day or two to just send the guys home for a day, it's always seems to be really good and much appreciated by them. And I know like my mental health is good after I go spend a day at the golf course and then show back up to the shop. So yeah, I just, you know, my time is spent doing a lot of shocks, engine servicing, rebuilding any little things we need along the way. But you know, really it's the other guys that do most of the work. The tire guys dismounting and throwing away tires and mounting up new ones and going to Hoosier and buying more tires. And then Carson, he's, you know, cleaning the bars, cleaning front ends, just doing whatever needs done along the way. He's kind of doing the dirty work. So we had, yeah, I feel like we had a good balance kind of doing that this year with the guys that we had, and, you know, don't really see any need to change it up for next year.
Nice. So speaking of this year, you know, you guys went out for the first inaugural full high limit schedule. Just talk about what your thoughts were of how High Limit did with a national tour, and just what your experience was being with these guys at every racetrack. Like maybe some things you saw that you think they could improve on, or and things you saw that you thought they did really well.
Yeah, first of all, I thought High Limit did an awesome job all year. The coolest thing that I noticed maybe from years past, whether it be any different series, I'm not going to name any, but you know, the High Limit crew, the team themselves, were excited to be there every night. You could tell they loved racing. They wanted to have positive attitudes. They wanted you to enjoy showing up to the races, and like that made it very, very cool just to have, you know, that positive mentality, positive attitudes when you go up to draw, whatever it may be. So that was huge. And the second thing, they listened to the racers really well. You know, if there's an issue, they would listen to you, talk to you about it. You can figure something out, and we're going to move on and be better for it. They knew there was going to be growing pains and just kind of figuring out the best way to do things. I thought as far as all that goes, they did an awesome job. The schedule was really nice. I mean, we raced a lot. We raced hard when we were gone racing. But I think that's what teams want. You know, there's not the downtime at hotels and all that's when you just, you know, things get hard. Obviously, we have a break right now, and so I think you get to see some guys going on vacation and doing other things, which is good. You know, as far as anything that needs worked on, it's tough saying. You know, you already saw some adjustments with the rules that they made, which is good. You know, I don't think they asked the teams a lot about the shock adjuster or the wicker or anything like that.
One of my questions, what you thought about the rule changes for next year.
I like them. I have no problem with changing stuff up. I don't think we need to fall into this status quo of this is what we've done forever, so this is what we're going to keep doing. So I appreciate the changes, the trying. I think the shock adjuster will be interesting. I don't know that it's like a needed thing in wing sprint car racing, but I think it'll be interesting to have.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll just kind of see how that comes into play. You know, what corner guys put it on. You know, just kind of how they utilize that tool. As far as the wicker goes and the bleeders goes, I definitely agree. I think that's, you know, best case scenario for sprint car racing. The wickers will be a good happy medium of, you know, what we used to have with going up to a 2-inch wicker versus what we just had with the 1-inch wicker. And I think, you know, guys can find peace. You know, you had guys on both sides of it, so now we've got the middle ground will be whatever it is, it is. The bleeder thing I think is really cool, just a safety aspect more than anything. There was a lot of times where, you know, you just race in, your tires get so hot and they cool off under yellow or red. Nothing, you know, Mike Hess doesn't let the drivers spin their tires under yellow, which that's for safety reasons too. There's guys on the track. I don't blame them one bit. But that's what's letting the tires lose air pressure, cooling off. So then they go back green, and you know, you just kind of get yourself in a bad spot because you've lost that air pressure. And so, yeah, I appreciate High Limit going out on the limb and trying to even just be on their own island and do what they think is best for the racers. So that's cool. And that kind of speaks about the whole season. They feel like they're trying to do what's best for the racers, have fun with it, and just create a positive environment for everyone to show up to and enjoy coming to those races. And I think there's going to be more changes coming that everyone will get to see that will be really positive for the fan experience even from it,
Awesome.
from High Limit moving forward.
I wanted to ask about, you know, I felt like when the season started and people were talking about High Limit, it almost felt like there was a bit of a rivalry between fandoms, rivalry maybe between the actual folks running the series with the World of Outlaws in general. From your perspective, though, having gone through a full year, does it almost feel like this year proved that, North America, especially the United States, can have two different 410 classes touring around the country and thriving? Because it seemed like, by all accounts, both series really had a great year.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like a multi-layer question, but we'll just start with I think High Limit creating their series developed a middle ground there for teams like ourselves, or maybe kind of that, for lack of a better term, middle class team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the David Gravels and Brad Sweets, but also not your local racer, to go run these national series levels and race for more money, and get to do better. Like we saw Bill Baylog, I think probably took the most advantage of it.
Yeah.
Like Bill Baylog was kind of that middle ground team. He went and ran with the Outlaws, had a great year. I think that really elevated his career. Without High Limit, I don't think Bill does that or does as well on the Outlaw Tour, because you're just racing against 15 really good guys every night over there. So I think it was awesome to see, guys like that get to show up and get better, and gain that experience on the national level. And I think it's just going to keep growing from that, that direction. That middle ground guy is going to keep getting better and better and eventually be competing at the national level. I think fan-wise, we showed, at least at the races I went to, whether it was High Limit or Outlaws, fans were showing out for sure, which was awesome to see. Whether they wanted Outlaws to win, wanted High Limit to win, didn't care. Like they were in the seats. So that was really cool. And then another huge topic over here was like the All-Stars getting dissolved basically to nothing.
Yeah.
Almost like they never existed, and like what's going to happen in Ohio. There was a lot of people that were really upset about, Ohio sprint car racing and how bad it is for Ohio sprint car racing to not have the All-Stars. And to be just blunt, like I disagree with everyone that said that. The way I looked at it was there was still High Limit races and there were still All-Star races, or not All-Star, Outlaw races in Ohio. But now when the Outlaws show up, or when High Limit shows up, you have a smaller core group of guys to compete against. So instead of maybe 10 local Ohio guys making a World of Outlaw race, now there's 15 or 17. That window is just bigger for those guys to make the show, make more money. And now instead of only having the All-Stars, which paid less money, come in, and the Outlaws, you have High Limit and Outlaws who both pay really, really good money. So I think it was a win-win. I think Ohio, probably showed that they're going to survive. They're going to be fine, right? And that was probably the biggest concern everyone had. And then as far as any just blunt rivalry back and forth, I think that's just good for the sport. I think any rivalry is good. Sports and rivalries have lasted forever, So I think that's good for the sport. And I don't think internally there's really any rivalries, at least not any different than if we go racing every weekend. I think we showed up to Outlaw races, and the Outlaws were very welcoming to us and happy to have us there. And I know the Outlaw guys showed up to High Limit races and had a ton of fun with us. So maybe if we promote the rivalry to the fans, it's that's cool, they can buy into it, but internally I don't think it's as big as it maybe seems.
The High Limit, definitely when they did their first announcement at the beginning of the year, they definitely did a good job of pushing that narrative that there was a big rivalry, like this was going to change everything. And then you saw that fizzle out more towards the end of the season. So I think it's good for everybody. It draws eyes to sprint car racing and racing in general, which is what we want to see. So, but just a little general recap of how you think your guys' first season on High Limit went. What you saw, and Chris coming from, because I know both you guys have big non-wing backgrounds. So what was it like with Chris coming into a wing car, trying to figure out a dynamic between you two to make a wing car go fast?
Yeah, it was. I think overall the season went well. If I had to put a grade on it, I would maybe say a C+. I think we passed, but not very well. So it was tough. There was a lot of growing pains, and I think Chris probably gets a lot of the blunt of just maybe why we didn't run well this year with his transition from non-wing to wing. I don't really think that's a fair assessment, because I know internally we had a lot of growing pains on my end. Dealing with the new truck and trailer, just learning how to properly function with the schedule we had being gone so much. I had 2 new crew guys that had never worked on sprint cars before. So, so getting them up to speed, just it was a lot to take on and manage from my end. And I know, I know that probably hurt our racing side of it. And just dealing with a new driver with Chris is tough. He's going to want different things than Kerry wanted last year or Hunter wanted before that. He has a completely different feel out of the race car that he wants. So trying to learn each other's, lingo, just it was a lot to take on for me on my side. So I definitely can't sit here and say, I felt like we had a great race car all year. Chris, could have done better. I think there's moments when I say Chris could have done better, and there's moments when I can sit here and say I know I needed to do better also. So it's just, it's growing pains. It's tough. It's our first year on the true national scale. I think we showed moments that were really good. Portsmouth is probably the top of that. Led like 21 laps out of the 30 and felt like, we probably should have won. And then, turn like Chris gets to the front stretch and the right rear is completely flat. So there's just things you don't notice when he's out there racing, right? But stuff he's just dealing with. So that was a heartbreaker for sure. Chico was another highlight moment for us, running third out there. Like there's two, big races to run up front at. So that was good. Just need to work on the consistency all around, which I think stems probably from me more than anything. We went to a lot of racetracks we've never been to before. Some we went good at, some we didn't. Second time back around, you have to be better. That's when you really get a good judge of where we're at. So I think we ended the year on a couple high notes. Racing with the Outlaws at Joliet was good. We were running third. It broke a rear end. Nothing we could do about that. And turned around the next night with another top 10, and then went down to Riverside and had a really strong showing. I think we ran seventh, which if it doesn't rubber up on lap 5, we probably run better. Just growing pains, but I think we kind of found our stride there. I was super happy to work with Chris and Nos and just everyone involved with that was really cool. I mean, that's even just another. It's not a distraction, right? But it's just another element that you have to deal with throughout the entirety of the year. Down to what drinks can you have in your trailer, what are we wearing every night, stuff I've never had to deal with before. So it's just cool to be at that level, be held accountable for all that stuff. It makes you appreciate and feel like we're freaking big time now. This is cool. So just excited for all that and just for what's to come still.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier on in that answer about having a mechanical problem and breaking, turn around and getting back to the next night. Has there been a time in your crew chief career so far where you just had a major thrash that maybe fans who were watching, tuning in, or maybe were at the racetrack didn't even realize how big of a deal you guys had back in the pits to either get back out later in a night or maybe just make the show the next night?
Yeah, I'd say there's been a couple. One of the really big ones that probably no one even knows or saw would have been last year, early in the year. We went to Wayne County, Ohio with High Limit. It was one of their early races. And a couple cars started crashing in front of Hunter, dusty place, couldn't see, smashed them, tore stuff up. And so we went home from there. We were supposed to go from there to New York. We were halfway to New York. Turned around, went back to Indy, rebuilt a race car that next day, which would have been Wednesday, left and headed to New York to race on Thursday, and got there at like 5 in the morning. It's just at this time I only had one other crew guy. His name was Nate. And Nate was awesome. So we busted our ass, all night building a new car, drove all the way through all night, got there like 5 a.m. in New York to race that day. Get to the racetrack, and in the heat race, Hunter, I don't even remember who it was. Somebody kind of floated out. Hunter grabbed the right rear and yard sales this thing off turns 1 and 2. We have to get the backup car down to finish the night. And this is like night 1 of a 2-week swing through New York and Pennsylvania. Jeez. So, we're already down a race car, had the entire trailer unloaded again after we just, went through all that. So we raced the next night, whatever, nothing happens. We go drop the car off on like a Sunday or Monday at Mark Smith's shop. He owns Mach 1 chassis out in PA. And Mark put a full front clip on that thing. We get it back the next day. We started building it at like 5:30 p.m. and had it done by 1 a.m. and went racing again the next day. So just it was just miserable week and a half, right? And but you're busting your butt the entire time. You're just getting parts how you can get them, rebuilding race cars so that if you do run into that situation again, we have to get another backup car down. You're ready. Just trying to be prepared. It's a big one, and another one that maybe even had a little happier ending to it that some people saw was last year at Smith. It was the very end of Ohio Speed Week, and Buddy Kofoid was in the car. And we were second in points going into the last night, or maybe even third, but we were still, right there with Sunshine and Zeb for the championship. And went out to qualified on the front over heat race, which means we had to win it to be in the dash. Go out for the heat race, and on lap 2, I can hear the motor start to lay down. And Buddy just holds that thing wide open for 8 more laps and runs that thing into the ground. But we won the heat race to be in the dash. So all of a sudden it's, get back to the trailer as fast as you can, yank an engine out, and try to get ready for the dash. And again, it was literally Nate, Buddy, and myself. That was fresh after the separation with Hunter. And so, just a lot of hard feelings over kind of how that went down. There was, really no help in the pit area. I think maybe Cy Lynch came over and helped us out for a little bit, but everyone else was getting ready for their race too, So just full thrash to get ready, and made the dash barely. We fired off to get heat in the engine as cars were already rolling the staging for the dash. So that was a tough one, but we made it, and that was really cool, and ended up tying Sunshine for Ohio Speed Week points, and then went to the tiebreaker was how many seconds we tied that. Tiebreaker for that was how many thirds we tied that, and then Sunshine ended up having one more 4th place. We had a 5th, I think. So it was that one was close for sure. But there's definitely those moments where if you're not prepared back in the shop for moments like that, you're certainly not going to make it out, and then you're even more behind, out on the road. So there's a lot of shop time, preparation time, getting ready for moments like that, so you can make it back out and be okay.
Nice. Well, we'll shift away from racing for a second. I got a couple questions. I know you're a big golf guy, so is that your favorite thing to do other than racing is to go play golf?
Yeah, for sure. If I can go golf, I'm in. And I mostly golf with Logan Seavey, Brian Walker, Hayden Reinbold. Carson, my crew guy, goes with us. But, we go golf, especially Logan and I, as much as we can when we're home. Logan's my best friend. I don't get to see him all that often because our schedules are just so busy. So if we're ever in Indy for a day, that's golf day. We're gonna go hang out and golf. And we actually I just got back from Phoenix. I was at Hayden Reinbold's house out there. And Logan CV was supposed to go with us, and Spencer Basin was also supposed to go with us on that golf trip. They both had to back out because their plans, Spencer's ride changed, so they went to Charlotte. Logan with the late model, so they didn't get to go. So that was a huge bummer for Brian Walker, the Walkipedia, and I that they didn't get to go with us. And we still went, had a great time. Super cool to be out there, be away from the shop for a couple of days, kind of mentally reset. But now there's already talking okay, when in January or February can we find a weekend to go golf somewhere? Golfing's a lot of fun, a lot of shit talking going on the golf course. It's a good time.
Yeah. Have you ever hit a hole in one?
No, I haven't. No. I'm probably closer to a 2 on a par 5 than I have been a hole in one for whatever reason. But I've never seen one either.
No.
So hopefully that day comes at some point. Whenever it does, it'll be a hectic moment.
What's your low round?
It is, that's it's got to be right at 80, 81.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever broke 80 on a true round. There's a couple times maybe take an extra shot, don't count it, whatever, you can squeak under, but I'd say most of the time I shoot, my average would be 85 to 90. So that's probably my normal scores.
Hell of a lot better than me. That's for sure.
And me. I got to say that too.
Spencer Baston's crazy. He's phenomenal. He's in the 70s pretty regularly. So he's really good, and he's probably the best in our group for sure. But Logan and I are real similar, on scores, and so that definitely keeps it fun.
Nice. So another question. I mean, we talk beer, chicken wings, everything on this show. We know you already got a Busch Light, so you're claiming that as your favorite beer?
Yep, that's the beer that I go after if I have to pick one. A close second would be Modelo.
Okay.
Ooh,
I love
nice
a Modelo with a lime. We we take a couple trips to Mexico, whatever, and they don't have Busch Light there, obviously. So Modelo is what it is. Or if I go out somewhere and Modelo or Busch Light's not around, a Modelo is a close second.
Nice. So you got your beer. Now you're ordering your pizza and your wings. What's that look like?
Pizza for me is pepperoni and sausage.
Okay.
So I'm
Nice.
as picky gets when it comes to food and all that. Pepperoni and sausage is all I eat. If there's one vegetable even on the plate next to it, I probably won't eat it. I hate vegetables so much. And then like the whole people that put pineapple on pizza, like I just think that's so dumb. I don't know why people do that. Makes no sense in my head. And then you guys probably like pineapple on your pizza, huh?
I had pineapple pizza last night at the shop, so I can't.
Gosh,
I
yeah.
can't.
Hey, no.
I could tell
I
by the way
stay
you
away.
didn't agree. Yeah.
I'm actually closer to your order. Like I would probably swap like the sausage for bacon if it was me.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that, and then I gotta have, we're close to Buffalo area. I gotta have a little like blue cheese hot sauce dip or something to go with the pizza. I don't know why that's become a thing for me. It's like I'm combining my pizza and wings all into one thing.
I'm not a ranch guy at all either. I hate ranch.
Not for wings and pizza. No, blue cheese or nothing.
I'm just dry. My wings, I like just honey barbecue wings or buffalo wings.
Nice.
Like a mild hot sauce, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Pretty generic when it comes to that also.
Nice. Well, I want to start looking down the road here because I know, you just wrapped up a season as a crew chief, but you are getting towards having some pretty serious responsibilities with the mic in front of you coming up at the Chili Bowl. We're Canadian. Beef kind of did a good job selling us last episode on the World Finals and going down to Charlotte and going for that experience. But for anybody who's a dirt fan north of the border or maybe somewhere here in the Northeast, Oklahoma's a bit of a trek to get down to. What's your selling point for the fan experience? Why should we want to try to come down and be a part of the Chili Bowl?
The easiest thing for me to say is it's that moment come Saturday night, right? Like you get through opening ceremonies, the flag presentation, all that, and then all of a sudden the lights come back on and that building just has an electricity about it that I've only ever felt one other time. And that's at Knoxville Nationals, Saturday in the feature. When you're inside that building, it's magnified times 100. It's insane. You can just feel the intensity. You can feel the emotion. I've been in the stands watching that and, feel it that way. I've been in the driver's seat during all that. It's a whole, different feeling, but it's just, you just won't find that passion, that emotion, the electricity out of any other race in the entire country. I don't care what it is. You just won't. Something about putting, I think it's like 16,000 people roughly around that 6 mile racetrack, just jam packed in there. You look at 3 and 4 and the stands go to the ceiling. I mean, they are floor to ceiling. And it's just, everyone's worked all week to get down to the C's, B's, and A's. That's it. And Brian, another moment that you have in that is Brian Holbert. He says, it sounds terrible because I'm hyping it up, but I don't know. But it's time for the Chili Bowl, or are you ready for the Chili Bowl?
Yeah.
When he does that, I mean I get chills. When he does that, and they always have the trumpet national anthem, and that's just another thing. It's just kind of history there, and the top row rowdies go crazy in turn 2, and it's just it's just such a cool moment to just stand there and look at it and just be like, wow, this is freaking cool. And then the racing speaks for itself, every year. So it's just kind of that aura that the place has that you can't replicate anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, Chili Bowl brings out the best in people and sometimes not the best in people. There's definitely a lot of viral clips and audio clips and stuff that come out of the Chili Bowl. It's crazy every year to watch on TV. I can't imagine actually being in the building. One day I'm going to get there and feel that because it must be insane.
It is. It's insane. I tweeted last year, Chili Bowl is the only place that has a driver you can leave every year in tears over how it went. But 3 days later, can't wait to come back again next year. It's nuts, man. And, just being, like I said, being in that building is wild. When you kind of look over the turn 2 stands at that many race cars packed in a building, and it's down to, you're just trying to walk up to staging to go look at the lineup board, the track, whatever it is, and fans are looking at you because you're trying to walk by them, and they feel like there's nowhere for them to sit, so you're in their way, and there's people yelling at you over the PA, don't walk down the middle of the aisle, and it's chaos, man. But it's such a cool deal. Like I said, it's not anything that you'll ever see anywhere else ever again. I don't care who tries to replicate it; they just won't be able to.
So looking ahead, I mean, it's probably way too early for predictions, but do you have anybody that maybe you're watching early on, or you're looking forward to seeing? Anybody that's maybe made the commitment already that you're aware of, that you're like, yeah, I expect to see them fighting it out in the C's, the B's, and the A's?
No, I mean, for me, it's just I think it's so cool what Logan and Kevin Swindell have done. It is just neat to see Kevin go in there and kind of remake his own name for himself, as a car owner and crew chief inside there, and then Logan being my best friend. Like, I want nothing more than him to have all the success in the world. I've worked inside that building a lot with Justin Grant, whether he was my crew chief or I was crewing for him, whatever it is. Justin's gonna get a driller one day. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's always he's not even second. He's just one of my other very good friends that I'm pulling for inside that building every year, and I know one of these years it's just gonna click for him, and he's gonna get a driller. But outside of that, not really. I mean, last year my cousin Cameron Key, he made the A main for the first time on Saturday, so that was really cool. I've been in the B main the last couple years, just a few spots out, and
Yeah.
every year B Walks tweets about, if I make the A main, I'll be the 7th or 8th father-son duo that's made the A main at Chili Bowl. So that's high up on my bucket list, and that's
very cool.
That's really where all my focus is just trying to make the
Just
A main
get
on
there.
Saturday, just to be able to accomplish that. So as far as like prospecting goes for me, kind of studying up on Chili Bowl stuff, I don't do a whole lot, just because you never know how things are going to play out until you see these guys' heat races throughout the week. And it's just, I think that building, if you try to go in and you try to predict or expect or just think about how things are going to go, it's going to throw you a curveball. You just kind of got to be ready for any circumstance, and just be on your toes throughout the week to make those adjustments as a team, as a driver, whatever they may be, and be react and try to come out on top. I don't think I guess that place doesn't owe you anything, right? Like, you hear that about like Wrigley Field and all these places. Like, as soon as you think that place owes you, it'll eat you alive.
What's the biggest difference you think from racing outside on a dirt track and then racing inside on such a small track, and everything around you is covered? Like, there's grandstands everywhere. There's not an open spot that you can't see something. Where you're in an outside track, maybe there's nothing enough to turn. You can just see a field. So what's that like, having so much going on around it and trying to drive around such a small track with everybody like just zipping everywhere?
Yeah, I think the like visual is, as obvious as that sounds, right? Like, the visual is the biggest thing. When you go out like outdoors on a racetrack, even if it's a tiny racetrack like Macon, Illinois, or Jacksonville, Illinois, like small places like that, you're pretty much just you and the racetrack. It's just everything outside of the racetrack doesn't matter. You don't even know what's going on out there. It's you, the racetrack, the cars around you. When you push down that ramp and make that right-hand turn onto the track at Chili Bowl before you ever fire off, the first thing is 15 photographers in that 10-foot space just flashes right in your eyeballs. Your car doesn't want to turn right, so you're just pushing right at them. And then all of a sudden you get turned and start to head kind of your natural path, and you look up and you see all of the turn 2 stands, all the front stretch stands. Like, you're just like, shit, this is a big deal, And then you push around to turn 2, and you're just sitting there waiting to get pushed off, and the top row rowdies are going nuts and just yelling things at you, whether you want them yelled at you or not. And they're not always good things. And so it's just like that, and then you fire off, and it's the only track that we go to that the track official guys will basically just stand on the racetrack when you're idling around. They're just there, So just everything just feels so on top of you. You feel like you're in a fishbowl, microscope on you. That's without adding any extra pressure from just knowing what the circumstances are. But I would say that's the biggest thing, is just you just feel like you're just in a fishbowl with every single eye in the world on you, and it's just tough to ignore that. And I think that's probably the success that we see a lot of these guys have, are the guys that can push that out and can just kind of ignore that factor and don't let that creep in their head in the big moments.
So kind of last one for me here is, we talked about looking ahead to Chili Bowl, but as far as 2025 goes, when does your preparation start? What does the process look like for starting out a season for 2025. I'm not sure what you have committed to or locked down for 2025 that you can discuss or that you want to discuss, but just in terms of that process, when does it really get going for you in that crew chief role?
Yeah, for me, it started back in like September, probably. And even honestly, it's before that because I'm on the phone with Maxim Chassis saying, okay, this is how many cars I need. These are any adjustments we want to make to our chassis. You're starting to figure out, okay, maybe these wheels have 2 seasons on them. I need to get rid of them. So like the preparation starts back in, September really. And then the end of our season was kind of late October-ish. And before we ever even went to like that last Riverside race with the Outlaws, I had unloaded the top of the trailer, which we had 2 cars up there. So they came down, tore one of them apart. And so like that was kind of the start of it for me was then. And even to this point, I have every car tore all the way apart that we're going to tear apart. Stuff's ordered, like steering gears are sent off, wing stuff's sent off. Everything's, just shipped off, getting rebuilt right now. So, this weekend I'll be in the shop all weekend, and it'll be a lot of just, getting cars started, built, get floor pans in, motor plates, things like that. That way when my rear ends show up or my steering gears show up, I'm ready for it all. And a lot of it's shop organization, just, inventorying everything you have so you know what you have, you know what you need to replace that maybe you missed throughout the season. Just getting a really good organizational system inside of your shop so that you can be prepared for those moments that you guys asked about, when shit hits the fan and you need to be ready for it. So that's what it's been a lot of the last 2 weeks, is just kind of just getting everything organized, prepped to go back together. I haven't started building anything yet, but we're really, really close. And I'd love to have, at least 3 cars basically completely built in the next week or so. And then from there, it's pretty easy. But I lose a lot of time that other crew chiefs don't lose when I go home for Christmas, and then I go straight from Missouri down to Shootout, and then stay down in Oklahoma between Shootout and Chili Bowl. So from December 23rd-ish to January 17th or whatever it is, I'm out of the shop, and most other crew chiefs can still be in there doing whatever they need to do. So I feel like I got to be a little bit ahead of the game, or try to be, but yeah. And then I guess in the mix of all that, I got to get a midget ready for Chili Bowl too. So it's just a busy time. So you can never start too early, but yeah, it's when you're thankful to have crew guys like I have that if I am out of the shop to go golf for a week, they can be in the shop, kind of handling business and taking care of things. And then if they need to be gone on, family Thanksgiving or whatever, I can be here, taking care of business too. So yeah, the work never stops.
Nice. So I got one more question, and we'll get you out of here. But the High Limit can't talk today. Release their schedule for next season. What track or tracks are catching your eye, maybe that are new or that you're excited to go back to from last year? Just what you think is going to be fun to run.
Yeah, I think the big one that everyone's already talked about is Vegas, right? Just a lot of unknowns about how that racetrack itself will be, but I've been to Vegas before and raced with Hunter, and the facility is phenomenal. Really, really cool place, destination place. So I expect, a lot of fans to travel to Vegas and just kind of get to be a part of that. It's in conjunction with NASCAR weekend. We did that at Texas earlier this year, and that was super cool. The amount of fans that left the NASCAR race and just walked over to the sprint car was awesome. So I really expect a lot of that same thing again at Vegas, and just, obviously a cool place to hang out. Maybe as far as just kind of more casual racetracks go, I think Lucas Oil in Wheatland, Missouri is really, really high up there for me. It puts on great races. There's no facility that beats it. It's the best one we go to in the entire country. So yeah, I like those because they're really nice. They're fun to go race at. And then on the flip side of that, I love the challenges of New York and Pennsylvania. Going out east and getting to race against those guys is really cool. Just a different ball game. When you go out there, your mindset's totally different. At least I'm still trying to learn the race car, what to do out there to make race cars go fast. So I really enjoy the challenge of that. So I guess if I had to pick a couple different regions, scenarios, that's what I'm excited for.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us, Clinton, man. Awesome interview. It was nice to talk to you. I learned about you and Vermeer Motorsports and everything that you guys are doing. We wish you luck in 2025, and we'll be looking for you on the Flow broadcast down in Tulsa for sure.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Cheers, buddy.